Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Brooks Group webinar. Excited to have everyone on today. We're just taking a second here to let individuals join us as we opened up the webinar. We'll get going in just one second. As people are joining, let me introduce myself. I'm Spence Wixom. I'm the president and CEO of the Brooks Group. Very excited today as well to be joined with Donna Percival, who is the Vice President of Sales Development at Distinguished Programs. Donna, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. As I said, we're just waiting. I see that number just continuing to tick up of individuals who are joining us. Want to give one more second for individuals to join. As we're waiting for that, Donna and I are going to have a conversation today exploring the elements of a world-class sales training program. But as we go, we'd love to hear from you as well. If you have any questions or comments around the topics we're discussing, please put those in either the chat prompt or the Q&A prompt. As you can see, every once in a while, I'm looking to my left. I'll be monitoring that. We have some other folks monitoring that as well. We want to make sure we get to your questions, and we're going to reserve some time for questions at the end of the webinar. Any questions that we don't have a chance to get to, please ask them anyway, and we will follow up after the webinar. So Donna, let's go ahead and get started talking about elements of a world-class sales training program as we go into 2024. There are a couple of things that I think are really important for us to focus on, and I want to make sure we talk about that. Number one, it's how do we prepare a culture to receive training and development in 2024? Second, what does a world-class experience in that training look like? We'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, how do we make it stick? How do we keep it going after the experience? And I know you and I are going to talk about that as well, but all of those elements of a world-class sales training program, and we'll get more into that. Where I wanted to start, though, is give us a little background, Donna, if you would, about Distinguished Programs. It's a fascinating business that you're a part of.
Yeah, so we are in the insurance industry, and we are what they call a program manager. So what we do is we come up and we develop specific programs for niche markets, such as high-limit umbrellas for hotels and real estate, community associations. It could be anywhere from their package to their D&O and their crime. City insurance, which is a package program for urban apartments and condominiums. So we develop special programs, and then we market our programs directly to retail insurance agents, who then bring it to the consumer. So
oh, sorry, go ahead, Donna.
No, that's okay. I'm done.
So there's a couple of really interesting things about your business that I think our audience will really appreciate. Number one, like you said, it's a very complex solution, right? Insuring a hotel with so many different elements of insurance that need to be considered or thought of, just as an example. And the fact that you're selling through a channel as well. Your sellers are needing to influence brokers outside the organization to present these or package these products for their customers. Is that correct?
That's correct. Correct. So we're not selling directly to the end user. We're selling to the insurance agent who brings it to the end user.
So when you think about developing salespeople in this space, it's developing salespeople to understand, present, and promote something that's very complex, that requires a lot of different stakeholders, that is sold to a lot of different stakeholders. And being able to nurture and maintain those relationships through the channel. Correct.
And then it's also just navigating throughout an insurance agency, from a small independent mom and pop all the way up to, the ABC houses like your Marsh, your Aons, your Locktons, and things like that. So you're dealing with a large range of agents out there.
Now, you've gone through in the last year a real in-depth sales development training initiative in your organization. And what we wanted to talk about today is how the lessons that you've learned, the experience that you've had, are something that other organizations can take away and apply in 2024 to their organization. So what I'd love to talk about is really your business goals, your objectives at Distinguished Programs, and how you wove those into your development program. And really, there's three things I want to touch on here if we can. Number one, leveraging a sales process that establishes a common language for the organization. We'll talk about this in a minute of why that was so important for you to do. Number two, deepening customer relationships. And let's talk about why that was important as well. And number three, strengthening communication skills. So tell us a little bit about these objectives, why you had these objectives as a business, and what you were thinking you wanted in a development program to be able to serve these objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2022, we went through some reorganization within the company, and we wanted to establish a way that no matter what sales executive was talking to what insurance broker, that there was a common language throughout our entire company. So whoever's talking to that broker, the broker would feel like they're having a common experience with distinguished programs. Also, we wanted to take our relationships with our brokers and not just make it a transactional relationship. We wanted it to be more going from a salesperson to becoming a trusted advisor, where they would come to us, even if they didn't have business directly for us at the time, but we could help provide them a solution out there. And then thirdly, not that our salespeople didn't have good communication skills, but with today's technology, a lot of people want to revert to either emails or texting. And we really wanted to sharpen our sales skills with our sales executives. So we would be considered a world-class sales organization out there.
It's interesting how much of complex selling today is many individuals selling to many individuals in that client organization, right? And for you, it makes sense because so much of the value proposition in your space is the expertise, the experience, the connection that your individuals, your sellers are having with the brokers and ultimately with the end user customers. So having that common language, having that broker and that end user being able to really trust, when we engage with distinguished programs, regardless of who we're engaging with in whichever line of business, it's a very similar experience is really important. That's why you need that common language to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and just another comment on deepening customer relationships. One of the things that I like to say is B2B sales is about the same as, selling a used car, except for the fact that you have to commute to work with the person you sell the car to, going forward. And that's, I think, a lot of the mentality that individual sellers and organizations need to bring today is how, when we're having transactions, are we setting up a valuable, mutually beneficial long-term relationship as part of that transaction. It's a very important thing to uncover.
Absolutely. And I can give you an example is about a month ago, I got a call from one of my brokers that I worked with in the past. And he's like, "Hey, Donna, can you guys help us with this, particular risk?" And it was something that didn't fit any of our programs, but I was able to give him a resource of somebody that I knew that specialized in doing this type of business over in Hawaii. So I connected him with somebody who was able to help solve his problem. So again, that got to a point where they weren't just coming to me to do business, but they were trying to use me as a resource to help solve a problem that they had.
And to the point that you made earlier, that's such a critical mindset shift for sellers, right? We need to be playing a longer game. We need to be establishing ourselves as that trusted advisor with the idea that in 3 months, 6 months, couple of years time, that will pay off in commercial relationship or commercial opportunity, but it may not pay off immediately. And we need to be looking for how can we be providing value beyond commerce continuously to set us up for those opportunities. And, as we've been doing research more recently, that is one of the key things that organizations are saying to us is their priorities going into 2024. It's how do we strengthen those relationships? How do we develop more opportunity for those cross-sell, upsell opportunities? How do we get more out of our existing accounts? And that's it. That's making sure that everybody in your organization is creating the same experience. Those relationships are deep and that the communication is as strong as it can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, let's dive more tactically into a development program and what we call a world-class development program that we saw you create in 2023, and that a lot of organizations are probably wanting to create in 2024. And I think what we want to do here is break down each of the components of that training program. And it's important to not just look at what happens in the training experience, but everything that happens around it, starting with the pre-training, everything that's done in advance of that experience that makes that experience powerful. And then also what happens after that experience to keep it alive, to keep it vibrant and make it a part of the culture. So let's dive in here to pre-training, what happens during training, and what happens post-training in making this type of program world-class. So starting with pre-training, Donna, in conversations that you and I have had, you've shared with me a number of things that your organization did as you were thinking about developing this common language of establishing this skill set or this excitement for development in your organization. Let's walk through a few of these. Tell me how you set expectations with the organization initially in kicking this off.
Yeah, and I think this is really a key part is myself, our marketing, lead of marketing and our CSO, we all got together and we started talking about what are some key objectives that we want to look for. We knew we wanted to use a third-party company to help us facilitate and roll out this process. But what were the objectives that we really wanted to achieve with that? Number one was creating a common language. Again, like we said, across the whole organization, so the broker experience would be similar. The other thing is we wanted to look for a company that understood our industry and that could tailor its training towards what our needs were and using our common language. So again, it would help build rapport with the sales executives during the training. And then thirdly, we presented these solutions to our CEO and COO, and actually they were on board, and they were the ones that initially, said, "Hey, we want to, change our sales structure a little bit." So we reorganized at the beginning of 2024, and then we wanted to take our salespeople, who, with 12 salespeople, we had over 200 years of sales experience, so a very sales team. But how can we continue to enhance their skills and make them world-class in the industry?
And I love that idea of really establishing up front, these are the expectations that we want. This is what we're going after. These are the things we want to see happen, the common language, the better communication, the deeper relationships, so that then you can evaluate the components of the program as they relate to those objectives. And like you said just a second ago, getting that buy-in all the way up to the top levels of the organization so they can be continuously advocating it and supporting it as you communicate to the team and as you build excitement. There were a couple of very specific things you did to build that excitement. Can you talk about those?
Yes, so we basically went to all of our program managers, who each of the sales executives report within a specific program to that manager. So we got the program managers excited about what we were going to be doing out there. We told them about the training. We kind of updated them on what we were looking for. And when we narrowed it down, we started with, I think, something like 12 different companies, and we kept narrowing it down based on what our needs were. And we told them about what we were going to be doing. We also rolled out to the sales executives as to what this training was going to entail for them, which they were excited about, learning more and developing. And actually, even though we had a very senior sales team, there were actually a few sales executives that had never had any sort of formal training. So, and the other thing that we told them was, this is a common process that we wanted rolled out across the company. We wanted it simple, but we wanted it that was easy to follow, and that it could make a difference in the results.
That's great. I love that, having conversation, having dialogue at the various levels of the organization, just to make sure people are bought in, that they have a say, that they don't feel like this is something being done to them, that this is a thing they're a part of. I think that's so critically important in launching initiatives like that. Make everybody feel like this is a thing they have a choice to contribute to. One thing that your CEO did that I was very impressed by was made sure to be a part of the experience, right? Didn't he flew out just for a couple of hours just to make sure he was there to kick things off? Am I right with that?
Absolutely. So we held the actual formal training, 2-day training in Chicago back in April. And he had some prior commitments before and after the training, but he made a point to fly in the night before. He was there for the first 4 hours. He kicked off what his expectations of what this was and what he wanted to see, how he wanted to see this become part of the distinguished culture, and really helped reinforce what he was doing. And we had another fall meeting, and he actually came back in and spent more time with the salespeople, and again, continue to support our efforts and what we're doing to build a world-class sales team.
I think it's really important, particularly for a CEO, to show the organization, as he did, I'm not just interested in what you're selling or what number of things or what number value you're selling, but how you're going about it, and that we have a healthy sales culture, that we have the right skill set, that I'm investing in, and I have a vision for how these investments and this effort will bring about the outcomes that we're all looking for.
Absolutely. And I think it also helped because of his support behind us that it has impacted the entire company. So the program managers were on board with it. The sales team was on board with it. And it's made a big difference.
Tell me anything else in change management that you felt needed to happen in the organization to get this initiative going?
Well, I think the key thing is we went through a reorganization with our sales team. Our sales team used to handle all 16 plus products that we had out there, and they were representing all of that. And so we were able to decentralize our sales organization, and they were going directly into the programs and becoming program experts on what they were selling. So it was really restructuring, but how do we still keep it still, the sales team is still a team together, even though they're in different programs. So to keep them connected, one of the ways of doing it.
Oh, that's great. And then I want to get to Sarah's question here. Well, what did the pre-assessment specifically look like for the training? We'll talk a little bit more detail about that. But first of all, I want to get from you, Donna, why you found it so valuable to include assessment and understanding of your people as part of this process right up front.
It's great. And this to me was the defining factor in our decision-making process of choosing the right company. Is with the pre-training assessment, there were 2 different assessments that went on. One was the DISC assessment, and the other one was a sales skills assessment. What we liked about the DISC assessment was it allowed the sales executive to understand what their behaviors were as a human being in their personal life, but it also matched it against how they are in their public life or their professional life. So we were able to show them where are their strengths right now with how their behaviors are. And also, after they understood that, we were able to take it a step further and say, can you identify with your different brokers what behavior style they are and meet them at their behavior style versus them just selling from who they are in general. The second thing we liked was the skills assessment also went through and showed where their strengths were in selling and also where their areas of improvement were, which made a big difference. So again, everybody is a little bit different, and it's just we look at it as like, a professional athlete. They know their strengths, they know what their weaknesses are, but they always have a coach to help keep developing them to advance their skill set. And that's what we were looking to do here.
So Donna, I love what you said there, breaking down those 2 points, right? Is understanding communication, first of all, how I communicate, how I behave, how I process information. And secondly, where I'm strong or where I may be weak with my tactical selling skills, my situational selling skills. I think on the DISC piece, it can not only be helpful to the individual to understand where he or she is coming from, but it can also be helpful to the organization and to the individual facilitating that session. You think about how much of a training experience can be less than optimal just for a facilitator to be getting to know the various styles of the participants in the room, or the strengths and the weaknesses from a selling standpoint of the individuals in the room. if you've assessed those things in advance, that's wonderful information to arm facilitators with going into the training. And from minute one, they have a very good idea of and can make an experience that is comfortable for and tailored for the individuals.
Right. And I think the other added feature is that it helps each of the sales executives be seen for who they were during the training, which I thought was really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And help them develop a personal path to greater strength and sort of more actively engage with the material, right? Do some metacognition around, is this correct about me? Is this not correct about me? How, and really think about more deeply how those various components apply to them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, let's jump in a little bit deeper on the importance of, you said earlier on, the importance of selecting a sales process, identifying a sales process so that you can implement that process in the organization. At the Brooks Group, we use a process we title IMPACT. It's an acronym for investigate, meet, probe, apply, convince, tie it up. We love it because we feel it's intuitive, that it's aligned to where complex selling is today. But I'll also say that in our more recent research has proven this out, sales process adherence is absolutely critical to success. And we see that 95+% of organizations have some form of sales process that they use. But what we found in our more recent research is 95% of organizations and individuals that meet or exceed target are closely adhering to that process, as opposed to only about 69 to 70% of those who are less disciplined in their adherence to the process. So process adherence works in getting the results you want. Donna, tell me a little bit about what you were looking for in a process and why process is so important at Distinguished Programs.
So again, we wanted to create something was simple for them to be able to follow. Based on the sales skills assessments, we were able to see
Donna, I think, is frozen up on us. So, well, we're waiting to get Donna back. I believe she's frozen up. Is there, can somebody confirm that I'm still part of this? No, people are raising their hands. So I'm still part of this. Yes, we're good. Thank you. Appreciate that. So as we're waiting to get, thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that. Let me just give you a little bit of a background on our impact selling process. Donna's going to be back with us here in just a bit. One of the things that's most important to us when thinking about process is the amount of time or effort spent in its various components. One of the things that you'll notice as you're looking at the impact process here is the emphasis on those front components, the investigate, the meet, and the probe. We feel 70% of time and effort should be focused there, with 30% of effort focused on that back-end persuasion. It's our belief that doubling down on that initial targeting of the right kinds of individuals, your ideal customer profile, putting together a pre-call plan to engage with them, then executing effectively those initial meetings, as well as doing some really deep questioning and probing as part of the sales process, is so much of the effort and focus needed for deals to go correctly. When we do that effectively on the back end, on the persuasion side, those apply, convince, and tie it up stages go much more effectively. So as I think Donna was going to share earlier before she dropped off, and we're hoping she'll join us here again in just a second, having a sales process that's intuitive, it's elegant, that's easy for individuals to understand and follow helps with overall adherence. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move us forward and talk about our what happens during the training event. So important to do that adequate preparation, that adequate communication, get that stakeholder involvement all the way up the organization, assess individuals so you understand where they're coming from a communication standpoint, from a sales skills standpoint. All of that comes together in setting up an opportunity and an experience in the classroom. Now, let's talk about, first of all, how the assessment components are used in the classroom effectively. And there's various sciences that we at the Brooks Group use in the classroom for individuals to better understand themselves, to make for a more healthy learning experience. First of all, as Donna shared earlier, we look at their DISC style. We look at their various modes of communication. Are they more of a driver? Are they more focused on steadiness and compliance? Having an understanding of an individual's natural and adapted style here is very important for being able to, number one, give them an appreciation of how they interact with clients, but number two, for that facilitator of that program to be able to tune or configure his or her interaction with the students according to their behavioral style. Now, there's another component in here that's important to understand, and that component is motivators. Motivators go a click deeper than behaviors in understanding why that person will perform, or why that person's motivated to perform in certain areas. And it's super helpful to understand, for example, having individuals who are highly utilitarian or individualistic, kind of more your typical selling profile. But individuals who are more theoretically motivated or socially motivated, traditionally motivated, or aesthetically motivated, understanding where individuals sit on those types of motivational continuums can really help the individuals develop and focus on what is most comfortable for them and what they most naturally engage with. For example, a highly theoretical individual, person who's highly motivated theoretically, will be interested in a lot of the details and the theory and the background and the data behind the training event. A traditional motivation individual will be somebody more interested in kind of the rules and the structure and the process. Quick question, anonymous question. Does this method of evaluation compare to the culture index? It does. It cross-correlates to the culture index in some ways. That's a question we can get deeper on with that individual. If he or she would like to give us their contact information, we can go deeper on that. Looks like we've got Donna back with us. Hi, Donna.
Hi, sorry.
No worries.
The world of technology. So came back by the phone. So I apologize.
No worries. These things happen. I appreciate you being able to come back. So we closed up I talked a little bit more about process after you left. We closed up that particular piece. We're now talking about the training experience itself. And I'm giving some outline as far as the assessments and how those are thought about and used in the training. We've talked about DISC. We've talked about motivators. Let me just finish up a couple of other things here, and I'll let you give your perspective on it.
Sure.
Personal skills is very important. Understanding those inherent, deeper individual skills individuals bring to the job is an important thing to understand. You can kind of categorize those by my ability to interact with the external world and my skill set that helps me better understand myself. Can I see the big picture effectively? How good am I at understanding details? Can I perceive emotions and behavior in others? How confident am I? All of these different personal skills are really important to evaluate and give individuals an understanding of so that they can apply them and use them in the training. And then, as we talked about before, tactical selling skills. Do I make the right decisions in the right situations as I'm going through? All of these different sciences can help a tremendous amount in, number one, setting the expectations of individuals and giving them a springboard for a training experience, but also to create a better facilitated learning experience on the part of those who are leading it. Donna, with that, I'd love to turn it over to you and your experience, your thoughts on using assessments and data like this in a training experience.
Absolutely. So what we found was it really interesting as we went through the assessments. When the sales executives arrived, they all received their DISC assessments as well as the sales skills. They were able to see who they were and what they were, and to understand what their behaviors are, and maybe even understanding in certain situations how they're reacting to certain things, and what's kind of prompting that reaction out of it. The other thing, as we dove more into it, was the ability to understand who our customer is and what their behavior styles are. For example, with a D, a dominance, they are very much more, they want to get to the point, bottom line, give me what it is. And if you're an I and you're into relationships and you want to talk more about, what's happening and being much more social about it, you've already lost that connection with that D person behavior style. So it's how can you adapt your own personal behavior style to meet your broker or your customer where they're at. So we found that was really important in doing it. And it also played out in the training is our facilitator was able to assess around the room who was what behavior style and communicate to them in that way when he was responding to their questions that they would have.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point there is once you understand what these behavioral styles are, not only do you have a deeper appreciation of who you are, but you start to have a deeper appreciation of others, and you can start to see more clearly the differences between the way you behave and the way others behave. And that's such an important component, I think, of a learning experience, is to have that appreciation and understanding of yourself. Overall, what we're trying to do by implementing these sciences as part of a training experience is to give people the deepest possible understanding of themselves so they can leverage that understanding in taking greater ownership and have a deeper relationship with their own development.
Agree. Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the other elements of this learning experience. So some of the skills that you felt, the tactical selling skills that you felt were particularly important in your learning experience. And let me put a few of these down here. Prospecting, pre-call planning, and that discovery moment. Now, I talked earlier when I was going through the sales process about how 70% of that effort and time and focus in the process needs to be in these upfront areas, right? In investigating that opportunity, in that initial meeting, in probing and going deeper. Donna, in your particular example, in your organization, tell me why these tactical selling skills were so important to be the focus point of your experience.
Sure. So from the prospecting position is the sales executives are not only prospecting for new business opportunities, but they're also prospecting to find who are the key people within that agency that have the business that fit our programs. So number one, and then once you find that prospect, are there others that you can have that individual help connect you to other people within the agency that have the same type of business? Pre-call planning, I think that is extremely important. It's number one, we have several different steps, and you all were able to provide a really good outline of it, but we came back and even tweaked it and customized it even more to how it could fit our salespeople. So connecting with people on LinkedIn, going to the broker's website, understanding the agency are there other particular types of insurance that they sell in other niches that could fit us in different areas they haven't thought of us before. It was also setting an agenda, knowing, what are you going to talk about? What do they want to talk about? And really honing in on and having key questions already prepared as you're walking into that meeting to be able to know what you want to talk about. And then the discovery kind of gets into that probing stage, is really not jumping just to, you hear something that you think, oh, I can solve that right now. But let's uncover some more pain points before we start trying to provide a solution. So really understanding what is motivating the customer, the broker, what do they need? What are they looking for? What type of solution they have? Where are their pain points out there in the industry? Because there are certain areas right now in the insurance industry that are extremely challenging to find certain coverages for. So really understanding how we can help solve those problems. So those were 3 key areas that were prime. Not that our salespeople weren't doing a good job at it, but how do we take it from good to great?
And I think you're exactly right there. And the thing I want to go back to is what I shared earlier around process adherence, and consistency of process adherence drives greater success. And what you laid out there, Donna, is exactly to that point, right? We want everyone in our organization opening those meetings in the exact same way, to the same degree of quality.
Mhm.
We want everybody in our organization using a common framework or a tool or a checklist, as you would call it, to make sure we're doing effective pre-call planning. We want everybody investigating, prioritizing, evaluating, whether they be new or existing accounts, in a consistent way, so that we know we're using the best possible effort and time in our prospecting activity. And then doing that discovery at a similar layer of depth, right? Having everybody have that same interest in going deeper to understand the emotional wants and the business objectives that are that step deeper than just trying to, okay, you need something, I'm trying to layer a feature and benefit to match that surface layer need, which we know isn't the kind of questioning activity that is leading to success today. So, Donna, what I love that you did here is you came into this effort saying, these are the things we really want to get out. These are the tactical skills we really want to get stronger at in this experience. And you worked with us to design an experience that we were confident would give those particular outcomes.
Absolutely. And I think it is really over the, since April when we rolled this out, I think it has made some difference in it. And then we're also looking at taking these 3 key elements and how do we create an abridged version of this and start rolling it out to anybody who has any sort of broker contact. So again, it continues to enhance the broker experience, that it's going to be similar to whoever they talk to within the organization. They're going to feel like it is a cohesive and consistent type of experience.
And that's great. And that goes back to that idea of common language that you talked about. I want to hit a couple of other things on a training experience in particular, because I think you've done some things that are very unique, very kind of cutting edge as it relates to that, excuse me. In taking an engaging sales training program and customizing it to your particular industry, why did you find it was important to have certain terminology, have the experience feel very customized to your industry when rolling it out?
No, we didn't want to be involved with the sales program that was just kind of an off-the-shelf type of, here it is. We wanted to have it customized again. So you're using our language that our salespeople use day in and day out. I think one of the key areas of doing that is it immediately built trust and rapport. The facilitator was able to connect with our salespeople. So they're like, oh, he gets us. We're not having to go back and explain what we do and who we are, because we're not like a high-tech sales, or we're not like a consumer product sales. So it's a very different type of industry. And it's really having somebody who could understand us and that got us and got what we needed. And that was one of the key things. The other thing that I really valued in it was the training is, salespeople don't sit still very long, but it was very interactive and engaging. We would break into small groups, have conversations, come back and do shares. There was even the second day towards as the afternoon comes after that lunch break is we wanted to get the room re-energized, and there was a great game of ABCs that was listed on the boards, and we broke into 2 teams, and each team had to go fill in through the ABCs one terminology they had picked up from the training through it. And it was, you got the competitive juices going, you got the bodies moving, you got people out there and engaged, interacting, and it was really a fun experience. And then the other thing is, like I mentioned, we broke into the small groups. So and since we had so many years of sales experience, people were able to share their different ideas through the learning. So it was a very interactive, and it wasn't just being lectured to all day long. We kept everybody engaged. And it was just I thought it was a great training experience.
That's great. Just a couple of follow-up comments to what you said there, just to substantiate them, because they're so critically important, I believe. Is number one, the great Seth Godin for marketing has always said, people like us do things like this. That's the way you want to market something, is people like us do things like this. And it's saying, so when that sales training reflects people like us doing things like we should be doing in our role, people are more likely to gravitate to it and appreciate it and understand it. That's why having the terminology right, having it feel like it's something that applies to our world is so critically important in these training interactions. And then to make it interactive, to me, that's the scaffolding of the episodic memory. By that, I mean, that's how you make it memorable. That's how it sticks in people's minds. That experience is memorable when they're up about interacting, engaging, playing with things. We learn so much with play, is such an important part of it as well. And then, like you said earlier, Donna, you had hundreds of years of selling experience coming into this room. People could have very easily felt like, I know everything. I don't need to be told anything new. But by saying this is a peer learning environment, you're an active contributor to this learning environment, not just somebody to which learning is being done to you. You're contributing to this. You're a part of this. Helps to engage those more tenured individuals.
Absolutely. And, we can all learn from each other. So it was really, that shared knowledge. And again, I think it also connected our sales team together, where they feel like they have different resources now. They don't just need to go to, their sales manager, or to myself, or to our CSO. They have the ability to work with each other and to connect with each other and ask questions of what, hey, how did you handle this objection? So I think it's been a very fruitful learning experience for all.
That's great. Let's talk about post-training now, because you've done some very interesting particular things in your post-training program that's really kept this alive in your organization. And I want to make sure we share that with everybody. These bullet points here, I think are absolutely golden. And Donna, I'd love for you to just walk us through some of the things that you said. These are absolutely critical. They're essentials to our reinforcement program and how they've worked out for you. Because you've really taught us a lot in adhering to and being really disciplined in doing these things. And you've seen great success as a result.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is, as Spencer, if you can go through all this training, but if you walk out the door and it all stays behind, it's been a wasted investment on the company and the salespeople for their time. So what we found is how, once we walk away out of this 2-day training with the Brooks Group, what do we need to do next? So you all offer a great digital platform that has a lot of the trainings. And one of those trainings was a 10-week reinforcement. What we did was we took our sales team, broke it into 2 small groups. We assigned each salesperson 1 or 2 modules, and then we came back together with a half an hour after they had done them. And on a weekly basis, one sales executive taught what they had learned from that module. And then they shared what experience they had had with their brokers by implementing that. And from there, it turned into a conversation where another salesperson would jump in and say, oh yeah, I tried that, and that was a really great experience. Or I tried this and that really worked well. So it really got a great conversation going amongst the salespeople. And it was a way that they felt they were contributing and teaching to the group, which I really think really helped it. The other thing is we did a coaching to impact. So we were able to go back, and as we worked with the salespeople, was really taking some of what we learned from the Brooks Group and start coaching our sales executives as we were out with them in the calls. And I think it really turned out to be very beneficial, and it continues to do so. And then we went back to our managers, the program managers, and really shared with them what had been learned throughout this training and what we were doing, as post-training of the reinforcement. And I have to tell you, it was a funny story, because one of our sales executives had actually gone through and we were going through, you know, the pro module in this particular sales executive goes, you know what? I found that I caught myself when I was with brokers because they would say something and I wanted to jump in and solve the problem right then and there. And they were able to take a step back and go, oh, nope, I need to ask some more questions. So it was really interesting to hear that and that they were applying, and it really did, sorry the pun, but it did make an impact on his approach to his brokers.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So look, there are two kind of overarching takeaways from this that I want people to really understand, because I think it's critically important what Donna did here when thinking about keeping a sales training and development program alive in your organization. And Donna, tell me if I've got this right from your perspective. Number one, Donna most effectively connected what they do in their culture, their activity, their ways of working to what we provided as tools, resources, support, digital support in the manner of Brooks Up. But they brought those elements in and made them a part of their way of working, their culture, their coaching cadence, all of that. That's so critically important because it needs to be a part of that workflow that people are comfortable with. So that's one thing that I think you did very effectively, and you were very diligent in doing that, and very disciplined in doing that, making it a part of what you do, and holding your people accountable for making it a part of what you do. But the second, and this is such a simple fundamental principle, but it's so effective in keeping people engaged. And it's true of, you want to keep people engaged in a church, in a social organization, in the parent-teacher association at the school. Give them a job to do. Don't have them just be a passive observer or participant in what's happening. Give them a job to do. And Donna, I think you did that so elegantly in giving those assignments to people to actively participate in these activities and to teach others and to contribute actively. And it kept them engaged.
Absolutely. And the other thing with the digital platform too, Spencer, that we didn't really talk much about was there's an ability to go in. So as we talked about earlier, we did that selling skills assessment, is there's different tasks that you can assign to a sales executive. So let's say their questioning skills or need a little bit of improvement on it. You could assign those directly to that one person to help them, and then have a conversation one-on-one with them. How did that benefit you? You know, what changes have you made? What did you learn? And what can be done differently.
I agree. That is a fantastic tool to be able to target module micro learning content to different individuals who need it. And where it works absolutely best on is when it's got somebody like you who's helping to shepherd that to those individuals, is, you know, indicating to individuals, here's something you can do to help you out or get stronger, making those recommendations. Again, it goes back to that, taking the tools and resources and making them part of your culture and your ways of working.
Exactly.
So Sarah asked a question here really quickly that I want to make sure before we move on that we answer for her really quickly. She says, can you please provide some specific examples of a job to do? So Donna, can you explain in a little bit more detail the jobs you were having these individual sellers going through this development experience, some of the jobs or responsibilities you were asking them to fill?
Sure. And great question, Sarah. So what we did was we took the 10 modules of the reinforcement, and I took all the sales executives went through each module, but I assigned a specific module to a sales executive to teach to the smaller group of 6 salespeople. And then with that, they would say, well, this is what this talked about. And it was a combination of a 10-minute read, or a 5-minute read. It could have been a 3-minute video to watch, and then some additional information. And then that sales executive would share what they learned. And then they would also share how it had an influence and an impact and made a difference when they were making sales calls with that particular module. And then they would ask the other sales executives questions like, how did you apply this? And what were your results from it? So it was giving them an assignment that they were teaching to the group, and how they were enhancing their own sales skills by using the sales process.
And I love that nuance that you said there. Not only are you teaching us what this is, you're teaching us how this applies in your particular world. And then you're asking your
Absolutely.
peers, how does it apply to you? So they're leading that discussion as well.
Correct. Yeah.
That's really great. And we measure utilization very closely. And I'll talk about measurement here in just a second. But that's been one of the things that's been really exciting as we've monitored what's happened, Donna, is the amount of engagement and the consistency of engagement of your team in completing these modules. I know a lot who are joining us who are in sales enablement roles. You can imagine, I know how you feel monitoring people's utilization of the content that you put out for them and hoping you can get people to consume that learning that you've invested in, that you want so badly for them to consume. And Donna, I think the way you set this up and the way you reinforced it and managed it brought that kind of engagement and utilization as a natural consequence.
Absolutely. And what we found too is through this reinforcement, it hasn't only made a difference with our external customers, with our brokers, but it's also taught the sales executives, how do they work with their underwriting teams and how do they communicate? How do they look at what their behavior styles are as they're having conversations with our internal teams. So it's made a difference both internally as well as externally.
Oh, that's great. Fostering collaboration for sure. Let's talk a little bit more here. The overarching point in post-training is it's not a set and forget. You need to continuously review and assess to make sure training aligns with business goals. Now, I think, Donna, one thing you did really well in your instance is you had a lot of pre-planning, a lot of expectation. You knew what you were going to do from the onset, but you probably found, and you're finding as we're going through this journey, ways in which you can tweak it, strengthen it, new ideas that come to bear, and have the courage to make those changes and implement those new ideas as you go.
Absolutely. And Spencer, just kind of to backtrack a little bit that I talked about, and when we talked about the pre-training, is I forgot to mention is, we had several different calls with the Brooks Group. But one of the things that we did is we had one of those calls involved our sales executives, where they were actually involved in answering questions as, what kind of training have you had before? What would you like to see done differently? How could what do you feel you need to learn more or to maybe become better in? And then we also actually sent in a couple videos of a sales executive having a call with a broker. So number one, you all could see and hear how our conversations go, but also it gave the ability without having to go on a ride along to see, okay, where's this person's strengths and where are some areas for development? So, the post-training part of it also to keep enhancing it is going out and working with our sales executives in the field. It's not going out the intention is not to micromanage them, but the intention is to see how have they applied this and how is it working and how can we share those successes throughout the company.
And it's so important to do if you really want that language to stick, if you really want that skill set to embed, to get out there in the field and observe how it's happening, because otherwise it's very difficult for you to make decisions as to how to pivot and strengthen that program if you're not watching it in application.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, this is a thing, Donna, we're actively doing together right now, I know. So we don't really have a lot of results to share with everybody, but we can say measuring the ROI and the impact of the program is really important to us. And one of the exciting things that we're going to be doing, as Donna mentioned earlier, we did that baseline assessment of selling skills at the beginning of this. And that gives us a 0.0 data point. And we're going to measure it again. We're going to look at, have we really changed knowledge? Have we given them new ways of thinking about the situations that they find themselves in to where they can make better decisions in those various situations? And our selling skills index helps us to do that. The other ways we want to measure, of course, we've measured the quality of the experiences as we've gone, but we also want to measure the application of the skills and the return to the business, looking at those typical sales velocity metrics, number of opportunities, average deal size, closing percentage, and cycle time. We want to look at all of those. Are we moving those needles in those business outcomes as a result of getting stronger, more knowledgeable, having a common language, getting better at those customer dialogues? We're confident based on what we're seeing that we're going to see that, but that's the thing we're actively partnering Donna to do right now.
Absolutely. And we're excited about doing it. So, and it's my understanding, we're going to do it close to the 1 year marker. So there's been a full cycle of reinforcement over a 12-month time period for that. But as a positive note, our sales team is doing a great job, and we're ahead of budget, and, it looks like we're going to finish the year strong. So, I have to believe that this has made a difference with our sales team.
It's exciting. And you love seeing those anecdotal, as you shared earlier, examples of individuals who are starting to use language, who are starting to recognize ways in which they can get stronger, do things differently. Those anecdotal stories are incredibly powerful. And I love the fact that you're capturing those and sharing those, because then they motivate other individuals to double down in their learning. Yes, the question just came in. Can I repeat some of the metrics? There's really 4 primary output metrics in any sales organization that you should be measuring as far as your sales velocity. It's the number of opportunities that you're generating in funnel, the average deal size of those opportunities, the win rate, conversion rate of those opportunities, and the cycle time. There's a really great equation called the sales velocity formula or sales velocity equation. Look that up on Google if you want some extra reading on it. It's really interesting. We've had some great questions come in as part of this discussion. I know we've got just a couple of minutes left. If you have any final questions, please put them in the chat. If we don't get to them now, we'd love to follow up with those questions to everyone. Let me just recap what we've talked about here today and some of the key points. Elements of a world-class sales training program that Donna and I have discussed. It's aligning training to your business goals up front, making sure you're doing that planning, diagnosing the key selling skills your team needs to improve. You can do that with tools like our Selling Skills Index. Create a pre-training rollout strategy that includes communication, executive involvement, really helping people understand the why of what you're doing and being involved in it, and assessing individuals so they have an understanding of who they are going into it. This was the critical one, right? Leverage peer learning to make training engaging and interactive, particularly in post-training. Give everybody a job to do. Get them actively involved in that ongoing development. Equip managers with a digital reinforcement strategy. That's another way of saying what I talked about earlier, which it's taking the resources that we provide and connecting those with your ways of working with what it is that you do. Donna, did I get these right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on.
Oh, great. I want to thank everybody. Donna, I want to thank you so much for joining this conversation to share your story. Super excited about the success that you're having there at Distinguished Programs. Want to thank everybody for joining us today. A couple of great follow-up resources that we have to offer. There's a white paper, The Ultimate Guide to an Effective Sales Process. We talked about process adherence as being that first and most important step to get right. Consistency of process adherence drives sales results. And then 22 tips for choosing a sales training provider. We've talked a lot about how to make that journey effective here today. You got to pick the right partner to make that journey as effective as it can be. Hopefully these resources help you out. Donna, thank you so much. Really appreciate the conversation, and thank you everyone else for joining us.
Thanks, Spencer. It's been great spending time with you.
Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Take care. Bye.